Hi, I'm Jamie with The Saving Secret, where I help you become more intentional with your money. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. So today I want to talk about high yield savings accounts. Before I start on high yield savings accounts, if you haven't checked out my last video where I talk about the US household debt has reached $14 trillion, you need to check that out because I think it dovetails perfectly into what I'm going to talk about today with savings accounts and high yield savings accounts. So specifically on the savings account, I make sure that I deposit all of my money from my job directly into my savings account. I do not put it into my checking account. I first deposit my money into my savings account. This allows me and forces a conversation to have a monthly budgeting conversation with my wife. We have a monthly budgeting conversation to determine how much money we plan to spend for the next month. We move money from our savings into our checking account, whatever we need for that month. So the first thing I like to say that our savings account gives us is it forces us to have a budgeting conversation. Another reason that I like the savings account is it allows you to put money aside for things that you don't know. Some people call this, an emergency fund, buffer. I like the term safety stock. This is where life happens, where yes, you may have had a budgeting conversation and transferred money into your checking account, but there's things that came up, whether it was car related, you had some kind of auto repair, or you might have had a medical bill that came up that you weren't expecting. There's things that happen that you can't necessarily account for in your monthly budgeting meeting, but you have a savings account there that's there when you need it. Another thing that a savings account can be used for is for future purchases that are more than 1 month in the future. For example, you could be working on saving towards a vacation fund. You want to go to a beautiful place. My friend just went to Cancun. He had a wonderful time, but I know that he was being intentional as he was planning for that vacation. The second thing you could also do with planning for things would be like Christmas. These are annual events that come up that you can prepare for, or it could be even used for something that's maybe a long-term savings goal that you have, like paying cash for a car in the future. But these are things that a savings account could be used for as well. And the last thing that is the beauty of the savings account is you collect interest on money that is in your savings account. Now, a lot of this has really changed a lot since the financial crisis. But traditionally, and I would say in the 70s and 80s, savings accounts, from what I've read, I obviously don't remember much of the 80s and I wasn't around in the 70s, but what you've read was that you had interest rates that were huge. I mean, people were getting like 7% return from a savings account. But also at the same time, to get a loan on a house was like 12, 13, 15%. So different world, different environment. They never really brought back savings. So interest on savings accounts. So what that allowed to happen was these high yield savings online only banks started to crop up. And not only did they offer high yield savings accounts, but they also brought more financial transparency to the banking industry, which had been completely crumbled after the financial crisis. So they brought more visibility to fees. They brought more visibility to what you want from a bank. And so with the proliferation of banking transfer, these online banks started to gain momentum. And people trusted them because they didn't need to actually visit a physical location to know their money was safe. So these banks would get FDIC coverage, so it was just like a traditional bank. So a few years ago, when I decided to open up an online bank, I switched to Ally. And they're not endorsing this video in any way, but I was very impressed with their customer service. And I was super happy that I was getting 1% back on my savings. And I laugh at that because that 1% is so low. But what I was getting at these other banks was like 0.05%. And that's still the norm with a lot of traditional banks today. And so I feel that it was very important for me to make that switch. And so you might think that's not a lot of money, but if you have $10,000 in a savings account for a year and you're just getting 1% on that money, you get $100 of interest, of money that you didn't have to do anything to work towards. So that's the power of interest. And when you look into these online banks, they really offer wonderful service. Yes, they do not have physical locations, and yes, it's a little bit difficult and different to navigate if you're used to a traditional bank. But if you're used to using an app on a phone, then you're perfectly comfortable using an online-only bank. And so not only have I used Ally for my savings account, but I've also used them for my checking account because I've been so impressed with their service. I don't have to pay for ATM fees. I can go to any ATM. They'll reimburse me whatever the fee is. I've just had wonderful service with them, and they've been great. Again, they're not sponsoring this video, but again, it helped me be intentional with my money as I look at other alternatives to saving. So there's a lot of benefits from online banking, and you should consider moving your money to a high-yield savings account if you have money in savings. But of course, if you don't have money in savings, you need to first build up money into your savings. And that's where I really started the saving secret is if you're making money, put your money first into your savings account. By putting your money first into savings, you're going to force yourself to have a budget conversation. So I hope you thought this information was helpful. Please feel free to give it a like. Feel free to check out some of my other videos where I go into more depth of other financial information. If you have any other thoughts or comments or questions, feel free to put them in the show notes below. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.